This is who I am. This is what I do. This is who I am. I'm the living proof.
So. Mock the remix featuring Carmen Latashá. Record
This
by
was
Wiz
a
Prophet,
huge day.
produced by Sun.
Oh my God. Filmed by my babe Jamel.
Yeah. Filmed by yours truly.
Oh my God.
Yeah, how you feel?
I want to cry right now. Trying to hold it because I'm so grateful.
Cry.
No, I'm not gonna cry because I cry all the time.
Cry and celebration.
Oh my
Tears
God.
of joy.
11,000.
Let it out.
On January 5th of some year I'm not gonna tell you, Latashá Alcindor was born. Accidentally, my mom named me after a revolutionary being, Latashá Harlan. And she also named me after Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Still just trying to decide if he's my granduncle. Probably owes me a check somewhere. But imprinted on my birth certificate, there was legacy, there was activism, there was a fight. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, right after the crack era, right with hip hop surging. Biggie, Celia Cruz, Shabba Ranks are instilled in my blood, and all I wanted to be as a kid was a star. But, growing up in a Caribbean and Latina background, that was not really a thing. I did grow up with a crew of hustlers, though. My mother had a regular 9-to-5 in the daytime, and at nighttime, she was a dance hall queen in the Jamaican clubs. My dad was a street hustler. I'm not gonna tell you what he was selling, but you know. And my aunt used to boost clothes, and I don't know if you know what that means, but we'll talk about it later. And I was just this little girl with my headphones on, pretending to be TLC. But the walls in New York apartments were really thin, and we lived in a one-bedroom apartment where me and my mama was sharing who would sleep in the bedroom. Out of that, I just started to write and create poetry. And I found the first love of my life at 16 years old. And he was like, yo, girl, you're really good at this poetry thing. You should do it more. And it was the first time I found somebody who appreciated my expression and understood it. He was then shot and murdered. And at that moment, I felt like all I had was poetry to heal myself and to understand myself. Now, my mama was like, we're not doing that poetry shit. And I ended up taking a lot of law classes and becoming this idea of what it is to be success. I was the champ at my mock trial classes and debate team and et cetera, but I hated it. So when I went to Wesleyan University, that's when I started to develop this love for sociology, Black studies, psychology, and I started deep diving into performance art and hip hop. And that's when I realized, this was what I wanted to talk about. This is what I cared about. I cared about my own history. I cared about the history of other people. I wanted to see and develop an activism through these works. And so I started to write different plays and theses, and I thought I was gonna graduate and become Lin-Manuel. Existence was like, ha, you think. I ended up working for a scary bank that I'm not gonna tell y'all also about. And I would go in with my blonde hair and my long nails, and people was like, that girl don't belong here. And I did it. And at nighttime, I would head over and go to the ciphers in New York City and the poetry slams, and I would just give them everything I could. And before I knew it, I became Latashá the artist. And people were like, girl, you should be out here. And I did. I ended up opening for Kanye West, Q-Tip, Big Sean, and all these crazy people. but I had no clue what was going on in the music industry at all. All I knew was what Jay-Z told me was to keep my masters and make sure I keep everything to myself as long as I could. But when I would go to these label meetings, they would tell me things like, girl, you gotta be sexier. You gotta give us more. Your body is not right. What you're saying is not right. And I just fell into this deep depression because I had finally found a passion for something that I really loved and enjoyed. But this industry just couldn't compete or understand who I was. So I fell into a lost moment. I really remember this time period where I was between getting a Metro card or paying for dinner because I had given everything I could to this music industry and I just wasn't receiving the value back. I remember my mama being like, girl, this dream isn't for you. But deep down in my core, I knew that there was something really special about what I was creating and doing for people. And so I continued on. I started to just self-manage, self-book. I was doing everything I can to be out there and for people to see me. I even might have emailed some of y'all in this room as a fake manager or PR person. I was trying to just get myself out there. And then it started to grow and shift. Before I knew it, I became the first hip-hop artist to perform and become an artist in residence at National Sawdust, The Shed. I was also one of the first to bring music to Maybelline and Ulta Beauty and do a lot of expansive things. And I was like, okay, something is starting to grow. Then I found my family, Lighthouse. We started to build music videos and content, and it really started to expand in the space. People in New York City was like, oh, she's fire. We need to support her. We need to grow with her. And without a dollar, these people invested in me. They started shooting my music videos. They started telling people about who I am and what I was doing. And then we grew together and moved to Los Angeles. And Los Angeles was a trip, boy. I was like, this is a whole different kind of hustle. I signed a publishing deal that was pretty much crap to pay my bills. I was doing sync music and trying to get my music out there even more. And the company that I was working for, this publishing company, pretty much asked us to build content without pay. And I asked them, how can we exchange? And they pretty much told me that our sweat equity didn't equate to what they did. And at that point, I was tired. I was done. I was unraveling. The pandemic then hit. I lost my publishing deal. I lost pretty much everything. I was trying to figure out how to make ends meet. But what really mattered to me was figuring out how to get direct to my consumer, how to get rid of the middleman, how to make sure that my check was coming right to me. And that's when Web3 appeared. One day, my partner came into the room and was like, yo, you ever heard of crypto art? And I was like, nah, what's that? And he was like, so you could sell your art for crypto. And I was like, nah, I don't fuck with that. And he was like, no, I think this is an opportunity for us. So I started to deep dive. I found out what blockchain was, what smart contracts were doing, all of that. And I was like, okay, this seems kind of cool. And then he paid all his rent on time during the pandemic as a full-time artist. And I was like, okay. Little nice dinners at home. I was like, okay, something's happening here. But what really, really hit me was that he was just so excited to find value for his art again. So I minted February of 2021 on a platform called ZORA. I minted a music video that was living on my hard drive, put it up, and it sold in 3 minutes. And at that moment, I felt the sense of relief, like there was a path for us, an opportunity for artists to transform the ways they were receiving value, especially artists like myself that didn't want to oblige to the same systems that were being out there. And then I started running. We ended up pushing more music videos that were living on YouTube. This is Glow Up Remix, and Glow Up Remix ended up selling for $30,000. And I was like, that was what I was making in a year a few years ago. After that, we released Go-Go Wine, which actually belonged to the publishing deal that I was a part of. And when I told them I was doing NFTs, they were like, I don't know what that is. I was like, awesome, you're only getting 10%. We ended up making $50,000 off of that music video, something shot in a garage during the pandemic. At that moment, I knew that I no longer was going to be portrayed as this starving, struggling artist. I was going to tell a different story for communities and artists like myself who have been homeless, who have been hard at struggling and finding a way to make opportunities meet. And I was gonna tell a different story of energy exchange, of making sure that people saw that music was a fine art, that we always deserve to receive this because the energy in music transforms lives and makes people open and makes people think something different. And then I found a community of people that felt that way, and it opened up my communal consciousness to everyone. And I decided that I wanted to work and be embedded into this new world that we found. And so I became one of the first women in hip hop to use blockchain, and also one of the first to end up working for a company as a head of community management. With that, I became a founder to TOPIA. TOPIA was an educational program dedicated to supporting and highlighting artists in the space. We toured all around the country last year. It was insane. And all these artists were so grateful to just have Sean in a moment to really showcase what they were doing that they never felt before in other spaces in Web 2. And with that, I found a paradigm shift. I found my why. I understood that this was way beyond myself. And things started to unveil of what I wanted to create and become. And now, with everything that I've done and everything I've been, I'm now raising and starting my own company called TOPIA. And TOPIA is going to be dedicated to supporting musical artists and building their own blueprints for their existence. We want to utilize Web 2 and Web 3 tools and bridge them together so artists could build their own blueprints like I've done with myself. And I'm very grateful for this time, and I'm very grateful for all of y'all to hear this story because there's so many stories like mine out there. So many stories of people that felt like they didn't have value, that didn't have anything that they needed, and now they're finding their gold. Thank you so much.
This is who I